Hello, I'm Scott. Welcome to the fourth episode in our barrel modelling tutorial video here in Maya. What we've done so far is we've spawned in a poly cylinder, we've changed the geometry to give us our edge loops around the barrel here up and down the way, and we've added a second edge loop on the top and on the bottom. We've extruded the faces in based on moving those edge loops where we needed them, so that we pulled the sides in and we pulled the top and base up. We've then applied a bevel to all the lips around the top, and we've scaled out the edges from the extrusion on the sides here, and we've applied smooth shading to the whole object to soften it off a bit. What we're going to be doing in this episode is we're going to add the nozzle to the top, and we're going to combine it with the first barrel again. So to do that, we're just going to spawn in a second cylinder, which we can see it underneath, but it's not where we need it to be yet. So we're just going to pull that way up so that we can work with it. Now it's far too big still, so while we've got that selected, we're going to go into poly cylinder 2 here again, like we did in the first episode, to set up our base barrel, and we're just going to change a lot of the values on here. So our radius we're going to set to 0.25, our height we're going to set to 0.375, because we don't want this to be very big. We're then going to drop our subdivision axis right down to 8, because it's a very small piece of the object, and when we smooth shade this as well, we're not going to notice how low the poly count is on it. And we're going to leave our divisions on height and caps both at 1. Now before we do anything else with this, we're going to click on it, and just to make this a bit easier, we're going to use this little blue dotted square here with a little cursor over it to isolate this, which means it's the only thing that will appear in our viewport. Now if we just zoom in on it a bit, we're going to delete these bottom faces off because they're not necessary and no one's ever going to see that they're not there, and when we combine this with the rest of the mesh, they'll be inside and we'll never know that they exist. So to do that, we'd go to right click and we hover over face. We're going to hold the tab key down again to get a little paint tool, and we're going to paint these faces to select them, and we're just going to press delete and get rid of them, and it's going to let us see inside like so. We're then going to click off of the isolate and bring back in the rest of our object, and if we go to object mode, we'll be able to move this about. So we want this to perfectly snap to the lid of the barrel here. So to do that, we're going to change the pivot point on this cylinder. So we're going to press W for move, and then we're going to hit D to move the pivot, and we're going to hold V for point snap, and we're going to snap our pivot to the base of our little nozzle object here, which means that when we press D again to come out of the pivot edit, our little nozzle is now snapping to whatever we select based on the bottom of itself. So if we go over here to our little viewport menu again, and we click on this blue cube with the white outlines on it, that's going to give us the wireframe on top of our object, which makes this a bit easier for us seeing where the different lines meet for where the points are that we can snap to. So while we've got our nozzle selected, and we've got the move tool on it as well, which is W key to get up, if we hold V for point snap, and we use the Y direction, and we just drag it over that center point on the barrel, that's now snapped perfectly to the barrel's lid. So what we want to do now is we want to just move our nozzle into position for where we want it. So we don't have to hold V anymore, we can freely move it on the X and on the Z. So I'm just going to bring it over here. As long as we don't move it on the Y, which is the up and down, it's going to stay socketed to the top of the barrel here. So we're just going to bring that back just a little bit. Now these are still two separate objects that aren't connected to each other yet, which is not really what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to select both objects while we're making sure that we're in object mode. So if you're in any other selection mode, just hold right click, hover over object mode, and then click and shift click on the other object so that you've got both selected. Or you can just draw a box like so by clicking and dragging. Now we want to make these both into one object together, so we're going to go mesh at the top here, and we're going to click combine, which means that these are now one joined object together. So when we click one, it gives us both. It is going to reset our pivot though, but that's okay, we can sort that out later. We don't need it just now anyway. So now that these are one joined object, they're not joined geometry though, so we need to sort that out where the geometry perfectly flows out of one into the next. So to do that, we just delete faces and we rebuild them again after, and Maya will link these two objects in their geometry rather than just two separate things that are glued together through the combine function. So to do that, we're going to hold right click, we're going to go to face, and we're just going to paint all the top faces of the barrel like so, and we're just going to delete them out. We're now going to go into edge, so holding right click again and going into edge, and we're going to click the first edge here on the outside of the barrel, and we're going to hold shift and click the first edge on our nozzle, and we're going to bridge these. So the bridge tool is these two little lines of white and orange faces between extrude and bevel. So it's these two little strips here. If we click that, it's going to create a face bridging the two edges that we had selected. So as long as the two edges you select by clicking and then shift clicking a second edge, as long as they are opposing each other, the bridge will create a link between the two. So we're going to do that for the first few, working our way around. We just keep moving and keep using shift select and then bridge. And we'll click this next one, then shift and select and bridge. And we'll just keep going around like so. Until we get these linked up. Now that's our nozzle fully selected now and joined up, but we've still got all these additional faces where we had our fan of triangles on the top before, like we have on the bottom here. So what we're going to do to fill this gap is we're going to bridge right the way across the barrel. So we're just going to shift and click and bridge faces right the way over like so, and we're just going to keep doing that like this. Now we have two triangular holes which we can't bridge though, so to fix these we're going to double click one edge on this gap, and it's going to take the perimeter of this hole here, and it's going to select the whole thing for us. So we double click one edge, it'll select our perimeter, and we go up to mesh again and we just click fill hole. So that's going to seal up that gap for us. Now the fill hole tool is good if you have 3-sided or 4-sided gaps, but if you have a 5-sided hole in your mesh, it'll create an n-gon that you'll have to fix later. So just be aware of that when using the fill hole tool, is that it can create n-gons that require fixed at a later stage. But for us, these are both 3-sided faces, they're both tris, so it's fine to use fill hole to seal those up. So now that we've got our nozzle attached and we've merged the geometry with it, so it's all one model now, we can quickly bevel off the top and bottom of our little nozzle here. So we'll just make sure we're in edge select, we'll double click the bottom ring, we'll use shift and double click for the top ring. We'll go back to bevel, which is this orange cube with the white outlines on it. We'll click that, and 0.25 is way too much for what we're doing here, so we'll try 0.25 on this, and that's a little bit better, but we'll see what 0.125 looks like. That's probably what we need. So 0.125 bevel on it, and we'll just click off, and we'll go to object mode. And that's our barrel where we need it to be for the modeling stage. So in the next videos we're going to go over the UV process on this and how we're going to UV unwrap this barrel so that we can get it texturable later. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.